Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of Safety Culture Solutions, sponsored by Safety Culture Strategies. I'm Mike Kinney, your podcast host. This podcast is committed to examining options to enhance the safety culture of numerous organizations, along with the insight from a lot of our featured guests on techniques that improve any company's approaches to having a positive safety culture. Our guests can be from all over the United States and wide-ranging, including some industry leaders, authors, and business owners. And they're going to bring their perspectives on this as well. I want you to do us a favor. You can reach out to us through Safety Culture Strategies Facebook page, the website, www.scstrat.com, or via an email at mike@scstrat.com. Without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce today's guest, and he is an amazing guy. I'm really enjoying getting to know him. It's Mr. Carl Porter. He's president of Potter & Associates International, and he's the founder of the Safety Institute. And he works with organizations that want to put safety first in the minds of their employees so everybody can go home every day without injuries. I mean, what a great goal, and he's been able to achieve it. After working in the electric utility industry for over 17 years, he started Potter & Associates International in 1993. Client companies are throughout the United States, Canada, Africa, Cuba, and Haiti. He's also the founder of the Safety Institute. It's a resource for organizations that want to create workplaces where it's difficult to get hurt. And it's a community of independent safety professionals who are committed to preventing every workplace injury. Carl is a certified safety professional and a certified CSP and a certified management consultant, CMC. He's the author of 12 books, including the bestseller, Who's Responsible for Safety? Here's the insider, you. Authorized hundreds of published articles and writes a weekly blog read by thousands. Carl's also an aircraft commander and district flight safety officer in the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, a division of Homeland Security. Humanitarian efforts addressing safety in aviation include Angel Flight of Oklahoma and Mission Aviation Fellowship. And Carl, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Good afternoon to you, sir. How are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm real excited about being on your show.
Well, I tell you, as I've got to know you, we've been chatting quite a bit. I'm really enthused to have someone in that has your pedigree as far as your certs, lots of books, but also you spent a lot of time in the field carrying tools, as my granddaddy would say. You kind of earned your stripes, right?
Yeah. I worked in the power plant for a couple of years, 2.5 years, and then moved into the high voltage side of the work and put my hands on it. And so worked as a lineman and a substation technician, and then as a working foreman leading crews, which was the hardest job I ever did, was working with knotheads like I was at the same time, trying to keep them safe throughout the day and get a job done. So that was where I learned a lot of my challenges on safety before I entered the consulting business.
Absolutely. In today's world, we've talked in advance of some ideas or questions. What do you think is one critical skill that business leaders need to where they can be supporting a positive safety culture?
Wow, that's a good question, Mike. And I think probably the biggest one I would say is being able to bring the human side to safety. I had this conversation the other day. You can have a management system for a management system's sake, but if people aren't willing to use it and don't understand the critical nature of a safety management system, then they don't know that they're not going to use it. And also, leadership needs to be able to have that one-on-one conversation. I know one of the biggest things I've done over the years that I enjoy to this day is working with CEOs and vice presidents of operations, people like that, which you and I talked about the other day that you've done a lot with. And when you have that face-to-face and you help them understand the value that they need to have for safety and how they need to communicate that to the rank and file, because just like you said, they haven't carried the tools, and the rank and file is looking at them like, yeah, where you come from, Jack? So, and yet when they are able to have that conversation, it makes a big difference. And it's a conversation, not a you need to do it this way, but here's why I'd like for you to do this. Here's what I need to know about it. And, I always tell my leaders, don't be the smartest guy in the room. You got the smartest people in the room right there in front of you who are the folks that lay their hands on it. And real quick story, if I can.
Absolutely.
I one of my consulting jobs, I was working with 15. Used to do these leadership circles with some of my clients, and had 15 of them, and they were all VPs, directors, and had a CEO in there. And during the break, they're talking about that they've got to come up, and they wasn't telling me this. This was always eavesdropping, and they were talking about this new safety rule that was going to come out in about 6 or 8 weeks after they decided what that safety rule needed to be and that work process. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm listening to what they're talking about, and I said, "Hey, I'll interrupt you for just a second. Can I ask you a question? Did you all like freeze that type of work at this point? Have you stopped everybody from doing that job that you're talking about?" And they looked at me real funny and said, "Well, no." I said, "So what you're telling me is you got people that are in the field right now while we're doing this workshop, this work we're doing, they're doing the work you're going to tell them how to do in 6 to 8 weeks." And they go, "Well, yeah."
Well,
I
yeah.
said, "Okay, why not ask them how they're doing it now
Yes.
and what you can do to support them doing it better?" And they're
Yes.
like, "Now there's a hell of an idea," and it's not rocket science, although sometimes I run into some safety people that literally want to make it rocket science, so it looks hard. And I go, all you got to do is ask the people that are doing the work. Now, I will say, and Mike, you know this, not everybody has the right, even the rank and file don't always have the right idea.
Of course.
They want to do a good job.
Yes,
They
they
want
do.
to do more work than anybody else, because what have we always been taught when we were kids? We were always patted on the back because we did more, or we did
Yes.
it, slicker than anybody else, or whatever. We were the best so everybody's always trying to be the best. Well, being the best, you got to say, what does that look like? And so one of the things that happened is I was around doing the zero stuff. You remember, before we were talking about, in 2003, I was doing a presentation to a company. And the funny part was the goal, when I got there, they'd hired me to speak. And I look up on the wall of this hotel and I won't name the state I was in. And the big banner said 23 in 2003. And that was their goal for the year, to hurt 23 people, not more than a OSHA recordable. And this was when I was starting into the zero culture and thinking about that. Well, anyway, I got up there, and of course, this was a group of managers, about 250 something managers in this room. And the first thing I said was, "Who the heck came up with this 23 in 2003? And I looked down, and the president of the company is sitting there. And they're all looking at him. And I went, "Oh, crap." Because, and so I
Yeah.
said, "Why?" I said, "You came up with this." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because we hurt 38 last year,
Oh
and
my.
23 rhymes with 2003. And 23 rhymes with 2003. And they had a banner and everything. Well, when it was all said and done with, after I asked for 23 of them to come up and volunteer so I could hurt them enough for an OSHA recordable so that we could meet the goal and get on with life, and this was in December of 2002.
Wow.
To give you an idea. So I said, let's meet 2003 with the goal, Matt. And then, you know what? Then
Be
you can
safe
be
for
number
us.
24, and it's not a big deal, But it was that concept that they didn't get in their heads, that we're saying it's okay to hurt 23 people, at least not more than an OSHA recordable.
Not more than a
But
short.
when I started in the business in 1977, though, they handed me a hard hat and said, "Your job in safety is to not get killed." That is exactly what my supervisor told me.
Yeah.
Now that transposed into something that I use as nobody gets hurt. and kind of famous for that one. And I've got a lot of clients that use it, and these are hard hat stickers, and I sell those things and give them away and everything. But you know what? It really it becomes one of those things that nobody gets hurt became a good goal, but that's not what we do. What we have to do to get to that goal, to reach that goal, and you know this as well as I do, we've got to create a workplace where it's difficult to get hurt. In other words, Mike, if you and I are working together, and Mike, you pull your safety glasses off inadvertently, you don't mean to. It's just it's habitual. You pull them off, or you take your hard hat off and you put it under your arm, or you unsnap your safety, and we're 30, 40 feet in the air or something like that. And I go, hey, Mike, stop, man. What are you doing? Beautiful. Rehook there, put your hard hat back on. And the thing of it is, here's the culture, Mike. Here's the culture we got to have. Okay. You look at me and you go, Carl, thank you for that. Absolutely. Man, I really appreciate that. Not, hey, butthead, but pay attention. You just take care of you. No, the culture's got to be, we're helping each other to get home. And when a supervisor walks up on the job, we don't, stop working because we're afraid they're going to catch us doing something unsafe. We actually keep working and tell the boss, hey, look, you see us doing something unsafe, boss, stop us, and let's talk about it. That is a positive safety culture. And when leadership gets that tied into a grassroots, it's unstoppable. And I've got clients that have hit that zero mark over and over again. I got one power plant that's a large coal power plant. They went from 48 OSHA recordables a year, and they've hit zero like a couple of years in a row. And they've had a few along the way that there was some movement on it, and they had some ways of moving around it, and we'll talk about that. But the bottom line is the number of people that they actually saved lives was incredible.
Excellent.
But it's hard work.
It is really hard work. And you hear a lot of companies, I've worked with this like you, and the phrase you'll hear a lot is I am my brother's keeper, right? Or brother and sister's keeper. So you and I'm on a job together. I have an obligation to you. You have an obligation to me. And if you point out this, Mike, you realize, okay, man, you took your hard hat off to wipe your brow and you forgot to put it back on. My first response is going to be, thank you, brother. Right? I don't take offense to it, and we're not ratting each other out. And what I've found the companies work good. Don't get into, okay, I had to report Mike Kinney 12 different times for the hard hat. To me, you're kind of missing the target again when you get that collaboration going. So as we talk about management, Carl, from your perspective, we'll talk a little bit more. We're going to do a commercial. What's a couple of good ways for the senior management to be able to get engaged with the people wearing the hard hats? Because I'm sure as you've come to appreciate, that is not the easiest thing for some senior leaders to do well.
Good. And one of the things that I've done, I've had senior leaders and this is one of my favorite tricks, and it's kind of it's almost I guess you would say a trick, but I tell them, go buy a couple of dozen boxes of donut, dozen or two donuts, however many you have to buy, 4 dozen, I don't care, and show up. If the operations group gets together and their work starts at 8 o'clock, you be there at 7 o'clock. And you be in the coffee room and you set the donuts out, and don't show up in a suit and tie. Don't show up all spiffed up. Show up in your jeans or cowboy boots. Look like one of them, but you don't have to act like one of them. And don't try to impress them. Ask them a lot of questions. Just, hey, how are you doing? What can I do to help you? What can our senior management do to support you? And then here's something, and I tell them, I say, now here's the hardest thing that you'll do. Shut the hell up. Don't talk after that. And when they say, well, I'll tell you what you could do, and they tell you something, don't go, well, the reason we do that. No. Stop. No, get a notebook, have a notebook and a pen in your hand, and start writing. And nod your head a lot, and then say, so what you're telling me is, if we could do this, that would help you to get home at the end of the day without injury. And if they nod their head and go, exactly,
There you go.
that is one of the things you take back to your senior management, your management say, this is what our people are saying they need us to do. So you know what? This is reasonable. And if it's reasonable,
Sure.
then do it. And those are the kind of things, some of the gold comes out of that. I run safety
Absolutely.
think tanks. I run safety
Perfect.
think tanks with people. And we get out of that. And you know what's funny, Mike?
What's
Most of the
that?
safety think tanks, don't tell anybody, okay? Don't tell anybody I said this.
It's okay,
But
we
most
won't.
of the time, it's the same answer every time out of everything, you know.
So we're going to take a quick break for commercial. We're going to come back, and we are far from done with Mr. Carl Porter. This is great stuff today. Stand by.
Safety Culture Strategies provides world-class safety culture and safety program management consultative services for clients throughout the United States. Whether your company is pursuing Voluntary Protection Program STAR designation, ISO 45001 certification, or considering a comprehensive review of your current safety programs and processes, Safety Culture Strategies brings hands-on experience combined with a unique perspective that readily translates from senior management to task-level personnel. This collective skill set provides you with a very insightful health check of your overall safety management system that can also assist with reducing injuries and attrition, as well as increasing profitability. Safety Culture Strategies is also certified to provide Ziegler Institute employee engagement training and leadership coaching. When combined with established relationships with federal and state regulators, Safety Culture Strategies is uniquely positioned to assist the safety culture efforts of any company. For additional information, visit www.scstrat.com or call us at 702-780-1410. After all, every company has a safety culture, but is it the culture you want?
Is it the safety culture you want? I tell you, after spending time with Carl Porter and understanding what he's been doing with his group, I definitely want a bit of his safety culture. And Carl, one of the other questions I want to float out there, I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'd like for you to share the story you just shared with me when you were testing your dielectric glove. So I want to give you a moment to think about it, because that's gold. So is it possible from what you've seen, because you can appreciate a lot of that senior team, they want to be able to measure stuff. They want to have some metrics and see a positive change in stuff, whatever it is. So from your perspective, is it possible to be able to measure that effective management engagement in the field? Or is it more kind
Yeah,
of
sure. And
organic?
that's, yeah, organic. Yeah. And,
Yep.
you know, it's really funny when we do, like you do, sometimes we'll design a survey for a client, and we're not, it's not a canned survey. It's
Right.
what they want to find out, those kind of things. But one of the biggest things is how much engagement is out there. And that's a leading indicator rather than looking at all of our dark rates and those kind of injury rates that we're typically measuring that are at the end of the road rather than during the journey. So and also, instead of measuring, well, do we have our managers doing this many observations or our supervisors doing that many observations, and driving them crazy with, every supervisor has to do 25 observations a month, and the supervisors are pulling their hair out just trying to get their job done. And, they'll do a flyby job observation, which is crap. And, and it really pisses the rank and file off, because they see them go by and they're going, oh, yeah, well, don't forget to tell them that you didn't stop and talk to us, And so one of the things is that I start doing is with my workshops, and also, when I'm working with senior management and middle management, is really getting that safety, quality, and production in that line. And thinking about, okay, if you're doing it, say safety's first. That always is priority one, blah, blah, blah. We've heard that since 1909. Okay. I mean, you can go back as far as you can go back and you can find that. Okay. At Hoover Dam, there's some
Yes.
think safety signs, and, safety is a priority. And I mean, it's not a new thing. But what is a new thing is how are we engaging each other in the workplace, and that leading indicator. How many observations were accomplished that were quality observations? And those come back to the rank and file. And one of my clients, for instance, and I'll go ahead and name them. I think that's okay.
That's
But
okay.
Valero Petroleum in
It's a great
Memphis,
group.
Tennessee,
Yeah.
great. By the
Great.
way, they're VPPPA. I'm a huge fan of theirs, and
Yes.
I go in and out of there a lot. And one of the things about them is their engagement level. That's what they measure, what they're doing in engagement, how these people. And I'm telling you, if you go to work in a plant like that, if you go to work at Valero in Memphis, Tennessee, you better be thinking about safety, and you don't walk past something that's an unsafe condition. That they measure that rather than how many of this and how many of that, and they're always looking at ways. But the other funny one is their safety manager was telling me that, and forgive me for the verbiage, but this is what they called it. They would take a report, and when they had an observation, they got a stamp that had a bullshit on it, no bullshit, and they would stamp that on the. So if you got one of those, it was like, no, go back and redo it.
Well, that's one
But
approach. But it
but
works.
it's
It gets
real,
their
and the
and it gets
rank
the
and
real.
file love
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Well, the rank and file love it, and they don't want one of those no bullshit stickers on their deal. They don't want a grade. They don't want an 80 out of 100,
Right.
or they
That's
don't want
right.
to go back to high school. They just want to know, hey, and you know what? Here's the deal. A worker. I know when I was climbing steel, when I was climbing poles, when I was driving trucks, everything else, all you had to do was be honest with me. Be
Yes, sir.
tactful, or I might,
Yeah.
punch you in the face.
Might.
But, don't, I might. Yeah, I said might. But
Might.
that was back in my younger years when I was a little less controlled. But the bottom line is, hey, just be tactful with me. Just be honest with me. And, come up and say, Carl, hey, look, I see you're doing this, and here's what could happen. Now, when we stop and we measure those interactions, those events, that incident,
Perfect.
and we say, now that's not necessarily a near miss. We could call it that, and everybody wants near miss reporting. Well, I don't know. Xcel Energy is one that does a real good job with what they call good catches.
Oh, nice.
Have you heard that?
Yes.
That's
That's
perfect.
great strategy.
And they measure the number of good catches, and hey, that's just part of it. But and here's the other thing. And I was gonna show you this. I don't know if I can get this. I'll try to get this in my. I got to figure out where my camera is right here. Oh, there it is, right there.
Move it down
Right
just
there,
a little bit.
and
A little bit there.
down
Perfect.
just a little bit. Okay.
There you
And
go.
now that's one of my other stickers, but that's my deal. If you notice that, keep safety simple.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's about attitude, it's about observations, it's about procedure, and it's about PPE. If you take those right there and you just, hey, if you do that, I guarantee you will start seeing some things. But you got to remind people of that, because they get away from it. But the metrics, you talked about the metrics a while ago.
Yes, sir.
You got to measure. What you measure, you will effectively work with.
Exactly.
But if you don't measure it,
Ain't gonna change.
everybody likes to play baseball or football or soccer or whatever. And if you go out there and you never keep score, and you really won't know whether you're getting any better or not. So
Correct.
that's
So-
kind of the whole thing. But we've seen it in sports where the metrics play out as to where you need to put the best efforts.
Yes, sir.
With what was that, Moneyball, was the movie about the LA. You know, I mean, that's a perfect thought about metrics, even in safety, as how we use those metrics. But the rank and file don't give a flying fat rat's butt about the metrics. That's you and
Correct.
me.
That's us.
That's management. But the rank and file, they just want to know that they've got great tools, they've got backup and support, and
Yep.
that they can stop a job anytime without a supervisor jumping them, a
That's right.
manager stopping them. I was working with one company, a big contractor who will go unnamed. And I got out there, and one of the things that would just blew my mind of this contractor was the vice president of operations called the safety manager that was in the region that I was there. I was actually investigating some. They had one fatality and 3 near fatalities within 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
And so I got a call, and they said, we got to have some eyes on this. Come down to it. Well, I'm riding with the safety manager through this big overhead job, and he started telling me. He said, "Yeah," he said, "I shut a job down," and he said the vice president of operations called me and told me to never do that again. And I went, "Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me see. Is there a problem here?" Duh.
Yeah, it
You
starts
know,
there.
so yeah, exactly. So,
Wow.
and when I confronted that vice president about it, oh, I never did that. And I said, yeah, of course you never did.
You got
And
it.
we got behind closed doors and had a talk, and I explained to him that one thing is as a CSP that if I could not convince him that his actions are not correct, that as a CSP, it is my ethical requirement. I can lose my certification
You betcha.
for not at least writing him up and turning him in. So I said, so before we leave this room, we have to come to an agreement.
You bet. You bet.
And he goes, okay. So,
Well, if you're going to be that way.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, now that you put it that way.
Tell you
But,
what, Carl.
you know, that's it, man. Yeah.
And all our viewers, this is what happens when Carl and I together. We kind of do tangent pilot. We have a lot of fun. Before we step away, we're getting towards the end of the half hour already. I need a short version because I'm such a big fan of humor and how it really enhances learning. Can you give us a short version of your dielectric glove test that you did for that when you're in studio?
Yeah, I was in the studio several years ago showing some clients how to do dielectric test or an air test of a high voltage glove, dielectric high voltage glove. And so one of the things you do is you put your hand in there and you pull that glove inside out and you inspect the inside of it. And the way you do that, you roll the cuffs up, and as you roll the cuffs up, the fingers will pop out. Well, typically those fingers pop out fairly normal, you know,
Fairly normal.
but it just so happened that this one popped out just like that. And of course, being the comic that I am, I kind of went, I pulled it down and it kept flipping. And I was telling Mike, the studio producer in there fell out of his chair. But you know what? But you know, it was so funny because they got a lot of calls in on
Yes,
that. And here was the funny part. They asked me, said, "Can you repeat that again?" I said, "I have no idea." Yeah, I'll have to rig the glove up. I don't know. It just got
make it work again. Before we say goodbye for this week's episode, I'll give you a little scenario. You're speaking in front of a large group. You might have done that once or twice in your career.
Yeah.
And maybe you got some young professionals, and you probably also have a lot of senior management team in there listening to you. So from your perspective, Carl, what's 2 or 3 things they really need to write down and take home with them?
Yeah, number one would be, first of all, if you're a senior manager, get involved in safety. And that doesn't mean that you have to, make sure you're wearing your hard hat and your safety glasses and all that. When I say get involved, I mean get involved to the point you go to the safety meetings, you sit in the safety meetings, you listen, and you ask intelligent questions, and you're not the smartest guy in the room. Number 2, employees, get involved in the safety meeting, get involved with your senior management, and actually walk up to your senior management and say, I'd like to visit with you about some of the things that's going on. And don't be a smart aleck about it. Don't be combative about that. Go up and say, I'd like to help make a difference. And then third, the last one really ties it all together is I don't want to say sit around in a circle and sing kumbaya, okay? But you have to realize we're all in this together and we work together. Nobody has the answer, but we all have an answer. And not every answer is the correct answer, but what we do together is shuffle them out and say, what can we do? What's the easiest thing we can do first? Like Mike and I will call that the low-hanging fruit. What's the first thing we can do that has a Pareto effect on everything else? And pick about 8 to 12 things you can do in an annual basis and to improve your safety culture. And you'll go so far that you just can't imagine. It'll just blow your mind what you can do.
And you're right on target. And for everybody listening, to kind of summarize this, talking with Carl is kind of like getting a drink of water from a fire hose. Lots of great information coming, but you want to focus on the human side of this. Have some talk about and monitor how you're having some of these conversations, and look maybe at a program like a Good Catch, feature on the things that are going well. Get your senior management in some safety meetings and just listen. Talk less and listen more. And employees, you're the smartest people in the room, in my humble opinion, to do the job. Don't hesitate to go talk to your senior managers or say, hey, can I have a few minutes of your time? I have an idea, or is there maybe a better way to do something? And when you work as a team, everything is that much better. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that concludes this week's episode of Safety Culture Solutions. I want to thank our featured guest, Carl Porter, once again for being on the show and sharing his very unique insight. This is the real deal regarding safety culture attributes and ones that are essential to you. Please help increase awareness of our podcast by clicking the subscribe, like, and share buttons. Also, send us any ideas you have about question, topic you'd like to see, maybe some other guests that you'd like to have with us. And these also can be found on the Safety Culture Strategies website, www.scstrat.com. And in closing, I want to share the following quote from Albert Einstein. Strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. Until next time, wishing you all the best with your safety culture journey. Bye-bye for now.